everyone, it's Cece here, and in today's video tutorial I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful macrame picture frame, which is completely customizable, so you can place any photos you like in there and then hang them up on your wall. So the beauty of this tutorial today is that you can customize the layout of your photos to suit the style that you like, and I'll show you how to change the pattern as we go so it does fit in the photos that you have at home. Now, the first thing that I did was get the photos that I wanted to hang in my picture frame. So this picture frame is for my beautiful mother whose birthday it is. So I've got some lovely photos of the two of us together, and I've just grabbed my piece of dowel, which is about 50 centimeters, but you could use any length that you like really. And then I've just laid it down on a flat surface and arranged the photos in a kind of layout that I think looks best. So make sure you're laying all your photos out and deciding where you want them to be in the frame. You can see how mine are going to look when the piece is finished, so if you like this style then you can also follow along and make exactly the same frame that I'm making. So once you have decided on your layout, the next part is to grab some thick cardboard and then just trace around the outside of each of your photos and then cut the cardboard to the same size as your photos. So you can probably see here that I've also got a bit of a white border on the outside of my photos. I've got the white border on there so that the photos have a little bit more space to slide into the hanger when it's finished. And the cardboard will just help give the piece a little bit more structure and support the photos once they're in the frame as well. So now that I finished that part, I've got these two different size cardboard bits. One is for the landscape ones and the other one is the portrait ones. So we'll use these towards the end when we're putting our photos into the finished frame. So now that you've got your layout and your photos all prepped and ready to go, we get to do the fun bit, which is actually creating the macrame picture frame for them to hang in. And for this project you're going to need some cotton cord. Today I'm using a 3mm single strand twisted cotton cord. Now the length of string that you cut will depend on whether you're only creating one tier or two tiers. So you can just do like a smaller frame with one row of photos if you like. I'm creating two tiers, as you probably saw in my layout. So my strings are going to be quite a bit longer than if I was only creating a single row. So if you're creating just one row for your frame, I would cut my strings to about 2 meters each. But for two rows like mine, I've cut my strings to 3 meters in length each. Now today I am working on a clothes rack for my project, and I find that this is the easiest way to create a wall hanging or a similar kind of project. You can hang the piece up and work on it while you're standing. So now the first step is to just grab our cords one at a time, and you just want to fold each cord in half and then attach it to your stick or dowel using a Larks head knot. So I'm just starting with this first cord. I've folded it in half and then I'm looping it over the stick and attaching it with a Larks head knot like so. So you just need to repeat that with all of your strings until you have your stick covered in cords. Okay, so I've ended up with a total of 34 cords, which I've all now attached using the Larks head knot. And so the next step is to just create a row across the top of square knots. So to do that, I'm just going to start with the first 4 cords and create one square knot here. And then move along to the next group of 4 cords and create a square knot here. And then the next group of 4 for a square knot, and so on until I have a full row across the top. So here is my finished row of square knots, and so now I'm going to create a second row of alternating square knots that sits under this row. So to do that, I'm just going to start on this side again. I'm going to miss the first 2 cords, and then I'm going to grab the next 4 cords in the group and create a square knot with these 4 cords. So I'm using 2 cords from one square knot and 2 cords from the other square knot to create my square knot for this next row. And you can see the finished knot will sit in between and below the 2 above it. So that's an alternating square knot, and we're going to create a full row of these square knots. So here is my second row all complete, and so now I'm just going to make a third row which will be exactly the same as our first row. So starting with the first 4 cords and creating a square knot with these 4. And then moving on to the next 4 cords, creating a square knot, and so on. So now that we've got the top of our frame completed with the 3 rows of square knots, we're on to the fun bit where we now get to work out how our pictures are going to sit inside of this. So this is where the cardboard comes in quite handy. So what I'm going to do is use the first 6 cords on the right hand side, and they're going to be the 6 cords that I'm going to square knot to hold this bit of cardboard in place. I'll then also do the same on the other side. So working out according to your picture size, how many strings you have in the back. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then I would grab the next 6 over here. And that's how my frame is going to sit in place like so. So I'm just going to start by creating a length of alternating square knots on this side using these 6 cords here. Starting with these 4 cords, so I'm leaving the first 2 out on the right and then using these 4 cords to create a square knot. And then coming back and using the first 4 cords to create a square knot. And then using those next 4 cords again to create a square knot. So I'm essentially using those same 6 cords to create a little row of alternating square knots. Now at some point you just have to get your piece of cardboard and check how you're going for length. So I still need a few more square knots in this row here. So now hopefully that should be about right. Yep, that looks great. So just going to join up this section with these two cords here by taking the two cords here from this panel and the next two cords over and creating a square knot with those four. Making sure these strings are nice and tight. If there's too much slack there, then the picture won't sit inside its place. And you can see that that will slide in nicely. So now I'm just going to repeat exactly the same thing on the opposite side, because I'm going to also have the same size photo on the opposite side here. So just using the same technique to create a mirror image of what I have here. So skipping the first two cords on this side and then coming to the next four cords and creating a square knot with those four. And then coming back to the first four cords, creating a square knot with these four. And then back to these four cords, and so on. Then finishing off this panel by again attaching these two cords on the inside of this panel here with the next two cords over. Our other side is also complete. So now that we have both sides finished, we can then start working on the other side of each section, which will hold the other side of the picture in place. So I've just popped that back in there and I'm looking across at my square knots, and you can kind of see hopefully by this how you would adjust this to suit whatever size picture you have at home. But we just want to gauge exactly where we should start that other panel so that that piece of cardboard will sit in place nicely. So what I'm going to do is just skip two square knots here and then start my next square knot panel in between these square knots here. So I'm just going to take this cardboard piece away and create a square knot with these four cords here. So that is where my piece of cardboard will sit. Now, with the other photo that I'm putting inside here, this one will be a landscape that will sit like this. So you can see that there is still a gap of string that I will need to fill out with square knots. So I'm just going to continue creating a row of square knots all along the top here, just to fill in that gap. So continuing on from this square knot, I'm then going to grab the next four cords in my group and create a square knot with these four. And then grabbing the next four cords, creating a square knot with those four. And just continuing that, creating that row of square knots again. So I've just stopped my row of square knots here so that there's the same distance between these square knots as well as these square knots. So I've got a gap of 1, 2, 3, 4 square knots there, and I've also got a gap of 1, 2, 3, 4 square knots there. So now I'm just going to create another line here to continue filling in this gap a bit more. So coming back to this square knot, I'm going to grab these 4 cords here and creating a square knot. So I've created another alternating square knot for the next row, and I'm going to keep moving along for each 4 cords, creating a square knot. So now that I've finished that row, it's time to create another panel here, which will hold both this piece of cardboard and this piece of cardboard in place. So it'll be a little bit thicker to accommodate for 2 pictures. So coming down to this square knot here, I'm then going to grab the 2 cords coming out from the right here, and then the adjacent 2 cords. I'm going to use these 4 cords to create a square knot. And then coming to the next 4 cords over, I'm going to create a square knot with these 4 cords. And then I'm going to come to in between these 2 square knots here and create another square knot with the 4 middle cords sitting underneath. And so I'm just going to continue creating this same pattern. So first creating a square knot with these 4 cords on the right, and then grabbing the next 4 cords on the left and creating a square knot with these 4 cords, and then grabbing the 4 cords in the middle and creating a square knot with these 4 cords. And I'm going to repeat this until I get to the same length as this panel here. So now that I've finished the length of this panel, I'm just going to attach it to these strings here by grabbing those 2 cords on the right side here, and then grabbing the next cords over and creating a square knot with these 4 cords. Again, making sure these strings are nice and tight. And I'm just going to also grab the next 4 cords over, make a square knot with these 4 cords, and just line it up so it's in line with that square knot next to it. Do the same with the next 4 cords over. And then I'm going to secure these in place by creating another row of alternating square knots underneath here. So starting with skipping the first 2 cords here and then moving to the next 4 cords, creating a square knot. And then the next 4 cords, creating a square knot. Grabbing the next 4. And so on. So now I've finished this section of my frame and I can test that it fits now by just sliding the cardboard in place. And so that's where the picture will sit. Now I'm just going to repeat this same panel on the other side here to complete this side of the frame too. So I've actually stopped my panel just here because I've had a realization that I do need to attach this piece a little bit earlier than what I've allowed for in this panel here. So I've knotted a total of 6 square knots down, and then rather than continue that panel to the bottom of this row here, I need to grab these cords and I need to attach them here so it holds this photo in place nicely. And so I will also just undo these 3 square knots here and attach a square knot here as well, and then put them back in. So now when I grab my panel, just slide in here nicely and sit in place. So I'm also going to tie 3 square knots with these 3 groups of 4 cords in the center here. So now I'm just going to continue on this row of alternating square knots all the way across the center here, and that will secure this middle section in place as well. So now I have my middle section all completed, and I'm just going to attach these strings together using some more square knots, and my first tier will be all complete. Just filling in this last little gap here to complete that row at the bottom. And I'm just going to add one final row of square knots to secure this section in place. Alrighty, so here is our first row or section all complete, and I'll just pop these bits of cardboard in so you can see exactly where the photos would sit when they're in there. So here it is, and you can see that as it is, it's a beautiful finished piece that you can hang up. So you may just want to do the one row of photos, cut the ends to your desired length, and then hang it up on the wall as is. I am going to do another section down the bottom with those extra 2 photos that I have. But hopefully by watching what I just showed you, you can get more of an understanding of how you are able to use the square knots to create the shapes that you need to put the little bits of cardboard in for your photos. I think it's a really great way of displaying your photos on the wall, and if you take a little bit of time to just work out exactly how many square knots you need around the border of your photos, you should be able to make whatever layout you like. So I'm just going to go away now and finish that final layer. Hopefully my mum really loves her birthday present when I give it to her soon. Here is the final piece that I made with the extra photos now in place. You can see it looks really beautiful up on the wall, and I'm really happy with the finished result. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and here's to finding our peace in creativity.